GM.
Well, welcome to a game analysis from me, and for a change, I know the World Championships is going on, so we're going to have to take a little bit of dip in standard, but maybe a more exciting game, which I'm going to show you now. And the game in question is one of my own that I played in a recent tournament in the Isle of Man competition, and I was playing with the white pieces against Grandmaster Surya Ganguly, who is a very strong player, 26-22, and I want to show this game because I think it had lots of interesting and unique moments to it that we can try to learn something from. Surya has worked for Anand for a long time, so he's basically the second of Anand, and you know these guys have worked together for many world championships and other events, so he's obviously very experienced and has this knowledge, this help from his own chess, but also from working with some of the best players, maybe one of the best players in the world. So the game started with me playing d4 here, and I had the white pieces. And before we go on, I would like to mention that there is a sale going on at the Ginger Gem shop for a limited amount of time before we get into the Black Friday mode. In order to do these free videos on YouTube, I do need to make a living as well to pay the rent, and I hope that these videos on YouTube encourage some of you to go and buy something from the Ginger Gem shop, because that's what keeps me doing these videos. So if you want to support and improve your own game, then please do go along to gingergm.com. It's 50% off, loads of things there at the moment, over 100 hours of tuition. If you haven't got the Ginger Gem collection, it's a great time to get it. Something like £40 for over 100 hours of tuition on openings, and I'm sure it will help your play. And there's a money back guarantee if you don't like it. Right, I have to say that because, we've all got to make a living, baby. And now my opponent played into, I expected all this, the Queen's Gambit, as Magnus has been trying against Fabiano, but after knight c3, my opponent's next move came as a surprise. So Fabiano has been playing bishop e7 here against Magnus Carlsen, as we've seen, and Magnus hasn't been able to make any progress. I was actually prepared for c6 here. This is a move that I saw my opponent Surya had played on some occasions, so I spent a good couple of hours preparing a line against this. I'm not going to give away what I had prepared, because hopefully I can use that for another time if things go right. But my opponent played bishop b4, and this is the so-called Ragozin variation, very, very popular now, pinning my knight to the king and quite sharp. And I was quite disappointed to see this, because I was like, oh damn, I haven't looked at this move for about half a year and I don't really know what to do here. In the past, I've always captured on d5 and put black into a pin himself, but I've never really got an advantage from these positions, and with white you want to try to get an advantage. So I spent a long time thinking here, and I thought, right, well, I want to get a dynamic position. I want to get some, double-edged stuff. I don't want to walk into my opponent's preparation. So what move could be useful here and, keep things dynamic? And I came up with queen c2, which I'm sure is an option. And the idea here is to not take on d5 too quickly, because that allows my opponent's bishop out. For example, in the last line I showed you, this bishop can often come to f5. Occasionally to g4, but mainly to f5. So I didn't want to allow that. I wanted to play a useful waiting move. This guards my knight a bit better in the case of knight e4. And I wanted to tempt my opponent into winning this pawn, and this is a pawn sacrifice, when I'd probably continue with e4 here. And this is a typical sacrifice. If you see my Killer D4 DVD, you can buy it now cheaply. Ha 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 ha. You know that this is a good idea in a lot of variations. Trying to win the pawn back. B5 comes, and I try to say that this centre gives me great chances, and I love these positions. These are my favourite kind of positions. I don't care about the pawn. I care about the centre. Instead, my opponent simply castled, and now I play bishop g5 straight away. Again, if he takes on c4, I probably play e4 there. Again, I don't really know the theory on that position. I'm more going on my experience. And here, I'm just trying to play e3, develop my bishop, and then castle, probably kingside. If I want to be really crazy, I can go queenside. But just simple development, and I don't want to take here because I want this bishop to remain stuck. My opponent tried to break the pin. I kept the pin. I did vaguely think about taking on f6 here and going g4. But then I recall a conversation I had with the joint tournament winner, Arkady Nxd4, a couple of nights before. And Arkady said, Simon, you play really good chess, but... Well, I don't know if he actually used those words, but he said you play chess. And then at some moment, you just go mental. And I thought, right, well, okay, let's try to avoid doing that here. So I thought, no, let's keep it more sensible. Tactics always come later on anyway. I think my opponent now played a very logical move, c5. Trying to open up the middle while I haven't castled. I simply played e3. And again, I want to continue my development. My opponent took on d4. And now he played knight c6. I mean, there was one interesting option here, which I'm sure Surya was thinking about as well. And that was taken on c4. Bishop takes c4. And this pin on the knight is very annoying. Typical isolated pawn position here. If my opponent now plays bishop e7, breaking the pin, he's lost a lot of time. And I'm very happy with my position. All my pieces developed. Great chances to attack his king. But I thought queen c7 was intriguing here. And the idea is to break the pin. And when I move the bishop, so maybe to, let's say, b3, he can try flinging this knight somewhere, like knight to d5. And I was looking at this position and I saw a couple of options. One that I wanted to play was just to sacrifice this pawn, castles, and let's say after some captures on c3, play queen e2. And I thought here I should have sufficient counterplay with a rook coming to the c-file, the two bishops, my opponent's king being a little bit weak, and my opponent being behind the development. So I was kind of very happy with giving a pawn this way as well. Instead, knight c6. Now it's my time to break the pin. I assumed if my opponent took here, he'd be in trouble, so he has to go back. For a vague moment, I thought about castling queenside, but then the words of Nxd4 haunted me again. So I now had a long think because the move I played involved getting caught up in some complicated tactics. Pawn to c5. Now, if I don't do this, if I try to develop my bishop, my opponent will take on c4. And this is not as good isolated pawn position as I had before. For a start, my opponent may just win a pawn, knight takes d4. But I've also lost a bit of time here. So I didn't really want to go into this. So I could try rook d1, but it looks a bit funny. And again, these positions I wasn't totally convinced about. I mean, maybe this is just a normal isolated pawn position, but I didn't really want to put my rook on d1. And, well, castle's queenside was interesting, but I just thought it was too risky here. My opponent can quickly open up lines on the c-file. And I think his attack's going to be ahead. So we've got to, even if we're great, even if we want to play great attack in chess and crazy attack in chess, we've got to do it in the confines of the laws of chess. You can't start attacking if you have a worse position. Otherwise, you're going to look like an idiot, which I have done many times before. So c5 was the most logical. Now, the idea here is if given time, I will use my majority on the queen side. And if I can get a pawn to b5, I get a very nice position. My majority, my pawn majority, is much more mobile than my opponent's majority, which is on the king side. And, this pawn is very useful. I can get a pawn here, and my c-pawn can become very strong. I always have to watch out for e5, this break, but I'm controlling that very well, and it never works. So this move struck me as being the most critical. Now, if he tries to break things up straight away, let's say with b6, which is a normal way to respond, I probably wouldn't go b4. I was thinking about bishop to b5, trying to win a piece. And after bishop b7, I thought I'd just take this guy off because that knight was controlling some important central squares. And here, maybe play something with a knight coming in or b4 now. And I thought, okay, his bishop is not very good. both of his bishops in actual fact. And I like my pawn structure here, and I thought this would be very pleasant. So my opponent, being a great player, played g5 with the idea that after bishop g3, g4, he didn't want to give me that easy position to play. And this is a sign of a good player. If he thinks the position is going to go against him, he does something drastic. And this is what I spent a lot of time calculating. Now, to start with, I had vague ideas of playing queen d2 here, giving the piece on g3, but aiming for a quick rook g1 and bishop d3. But I didn't really believe it after knight h7 and king h8, and I thought my opponent would defend adequately here. Rook g1, king h8. If I ever take here, I don't really believe it. He's even got bishop coming here. And if bishop d3 at some point, then just f5. It's not working. So knight e5 was logical, coming forwards. My opponent has to win this pawn, otherwise he's exposed the king too much. And now the point behind my play, queen d2. And this is a very imaginative, interesting, fascinating position. I'm attacking his knight, and my idea here is that if he goes knight b3, the greedy move, I will take on h6, bringing my queen within striking distance of the king. And if knight takes h1, what is the winning move here? Maybe I'll give you a chance to pause the position if need be. The winning move here is Harry, but not Harry 4, Harry 3. And there's no way my opponent can stop me opening the h-file and playing queen h8 checkmate. For example, I'm either going to take on g4 or I'm going to play rook h3 and just checkmate him. It's as simple as that. So my opponent, as soon as I saw his queen d2 idea, I played c5 because I saw that the position in the game was just very unclear, but I had good development. And I think my opponent's forced to play his next move, knight f5. He has to bring pieces towards his king because g5, g4 has certainly weakened his king. And now I play bishop d3, a standard developing move, aiming another piece towards his king. And yeah, this is very interesting position. I mean, I have a number of ways to increase the attack. One, to get rid of his defensive knight and bring the queen in. Number two is to play h3 and, like before, open up the h-file. And in some cases, I can even move my bishop here and try to do this. So I thought it was a very promising position, this, when I went into it. And I thought it's the kind of position I personally love playing. My opponent now played very well, I feel. Well, he went knight e4. He realised his position was in danger. And he realised that he wanted to keep this knight to defend here. So he gave up a pawn a different way. Bishop takes, pawn takes. Now, there's no way I'm going to exchange queens here. Not when my opponent's king is so weak. I mean, his king is exposed. He's moved his bodyguards out the way. So why would I want to get rid of my most dangerous piece, the queen? No. Not yet, anyway. So queen e2. And this attacks two pawns. Bishop takes c5. And here I sunk into some long thinking. It's a very complicated position. And when you have a position like this and you have so many options, life becomes very tricky. You know, complex positions require a lot of time because you've got to think about so many different moves here. Rook d1, knight e4, queen takes pawn check, queen takes... There's so many moves to play. And this came back to haunt me just around the time control where I had no time. I got in serious time trouble. Now, it looked natural for me to play knight takes e4, winning a pawn, attacking a piece, and bringing another piece nearer to his king. And I think this is still okay. Queen a5 check was what I expected, and my opponent fighting fire with fire. Active defense is always best, so good move from my opponent here. I can't play b4 because bishop takes b4. I don't want to retreat a knight, so king f1. I wasn't too concerned about not castling because my main idea is still to play h3 and take here and open up the rook on the h-file. I mean, it's funny, in actual fact, if I go queen takes g4, his king tucks away. And it might be playable, but it's actually, I'd rather not have this pawn on h2 because another piece enters in the attack. So I don't really want to grab this one, in all situations. Now my opponent played an excellent move which I had missed. When I went into this line, I only looked at b6 with the idea of going bishop a6. And there are a number of extremely tempting moves here. I thought it's always nice having a back out option in complex positions, and I thought a back out option is something like knight c4. Because, okay, a piece moves away from the king side, but this blocks out the diagonal, gains the tempo. And here I might have a bishop coming in, a knight coming in. This was one very simple way to play. Let's say he does move the queen. Well, here I can come with a check, and I can come with this very strong idea, the bishop coming into e5. So this is the kind of thing I was quite promising about, but my opponent played an excellent move, bishop d4. And now I fought again for about half an hour here. This position is just chaotic. Now, I got quite short of time here, but I actually think I found a very good move. Now, I thought for a long time about taking this pawn, as I think people would, but if I take this pawn check, I didn't really see what I was doing after the king comes to this square, king h8. I don't have time to play knight f6 with the threat of knight takes f7 check. This is something I saw on my horizon. Let's say he doesn't take my piece, which of course he should. He plays b6. Well, here, a beautiful checkmate. Knight takes f7 check. Only one move. Rook takes. Bless me. Can you say that, or is it just bless you? Put that in your pipe, Mr. Ganguly. But of course, I just don't have time to play this, because if I play my knight in, he just takes on e5, and he defends everything here. So I lose a piece. So I don't see how after king h8 I can continue this position, because my knight is too loose on e5, and if I have to move this away, I'm not sure what my queen's doing over here. I take a pawn with check. That's not always good. You need to have a purpose in positions like this. If you start drifting and play moves where you're not sure where you're going, you're going to lose. In complex positions like this, you just need to knuckle down, create threats, win material, checkmate. Simple as that. And that doesn't really do any of that. Okay, it wins a pawn, but what's a pawn in this position? Knight takes g4, I nearly came around to playing. But even here, I thought b6, and I wasn't entirely happy with how I was going to continue. This bishop is such a good defender. It stops my bishop coming in, and I'm not really doing anything. Even though my pieces look quite dangerous, it comes down to pure calculation. And again, I can check, so what? My opponent moves his king. I'm not doing anything. He's defending, and he's ready to counterattack. So after a long think, I came up with rook d1, and this is probably one of the moves from the whole of my couple of weeks of playing chess that I'm most proud of finding. And this I thought was very, very nice, because it doesn't look natural to lead the knight on pre. My general idea is to sacrifice the rook for his important bishop, because that bishop is a stalwart defender of his king. And also, it might distract his knight away from the defence. So I get rid of two good defensive pieces with one of my pieces that's not doing anything on a1. But of course, such a move had to be backed up by very careful calculation. Now, the first thing I saw is that if he goes bishop takes e5 here, which looks like it wins a piece, I was going to play b4. An intermezzo move, a move in the middle of tactics. And this is trying to distract his queen away from the bishop. His queen can't go to any of these three squares where it might be possible. Let me just remember if this is what I was doing. It's quite a while since I played this game. Yes, and the point is, if he goes here, defending his bishop like this, and it looks like he's a piece up, now I have a lovely idea. Knight f6 check. Because the bishop is pinned, so he can't take the knight, because I take the queen. And when he moves his king, I just take here, and I'm winning. I attack the king indirectly and the queen. So this is my first idea, this little b4 move. Now he can play knight takes g3, but now we see my rook opening up. He still has to move his queen. If he tries to swap off queens, I flick in b5. And let's say he takes here. Now my attack comes. and it comes with power. I take here check, and one line I was analysing here is, let's say, blocks with the bishop, knight f6 check, the king has to go to h8, and now I was looking at just queen g5. And I thought this was winning because he had no way to stop rook takes h6 with mate to follow. So I think that's quite a nice little combination there. Even though I've given up a piece, I'm giving mate. So all these lines I needed to analyse. Very complex. And in the end, after a long think, my opponent played knight takes g3. I recaptured with the h-pawn. And now he played queen takes e5. So this is another way he can temporarily win a piece. Queen takes g4 check. But I have to admit, when I first calculated this rook d1 move, the move I wanted to play here, and unfortunately this is move 21 and I only had about 5 minutes left to, I'm blaming it on clock handling, it's my problem for getting short time. Queen takes g4 was not the move I wanted to play. I really here wanted to play rook takes d4. And even to this day, I haven't checked this with the computer yet, I'm not sure if this is working. The point is, he cannot play queen takes d4 because of this same idea as I showed you. Check. Again, if his king moves to h7, then knight g5 check is winning his queen in the game. So queen here is a better defense, but again, I have knight f6 check, king h8 only move, and then queen f4. And rook takes h6 is unstoppable. So this is what I'd previously calculated, but I saw this move f5, which is his only defensive try. And after f5, I'll be honest, I just couldn't find anything. I felt like I should be winning because his king is so weak. And I have a lot of attacking pieces, but I just could not find it, guys, here. One line that I originally... Okay, the line I originally wanted to play after rook d1 was to bring my queen in. But I noticed that after the queen comes in, now I defend my rook, so he has to take my knight. After my queen comes in, which looked very scary to me for him, I missed he had this move. Rook takes f2 check. And after king takes, if I move the king here, I think he takes here still. And after king takes, queen takes d4 check. I thought this is just, he has at least a draw here anyway, at least a draw. But maybe just queen g7 comes next and I'm just losing. So I couldn't get this to work, but one line I just wasn't sure about after f5 was if I play queen e3 and then take here with the rook. And this position fascinated me, and I just needed another 10 minutes on the clock to work out whether this is playable. When my rooks and queen are working very well, but I am a piece down. So I don't know. I still don't know if this is good for me or not. In the actual game, I played queen takes g4 check. I played the safe line. And after queen g7, rook takes d4. My queen can be taken for a move, but I have knight takes f6 check. And now knight takes g4. And we get into an ending now, which I clearly was not happy about, especially with so little time. I mean, I think I should be better here, but after b6... with my opponent bringing his rooks into the center, I didn't want this to happen. I thought, right, okay, what am I going to do here? And I thought, look, if I want to keep trying to win this game, I'm going to have to play risky. So I grabbed this pawn on h6, knowing my knight could be in trouble, but with ideas of bringing the rook over. Check, king g1, f5, trapping my knight, g4. And again, you know, I thought this is the only way to try and win. Rook d8, and now rook h3, so he can't check and take my rook. King g6, and now I use my second g-pawn. But after f4, my position is kind of creaking here, I feel. I play knight f5, trying to get that back in the game. Rook d1 check. I can't go king g2 because there's a check on f1. So king h2 is forced. And now I was very happy to see this move, because after this move, I have a nice way to rearrange my pieces slightly. Can you see it? Pause again if you need. Knight h4 check. And if king g5, I have knight f3 check. So where does his king go? Well, he went king to f6 and now g5 check. same tactic, knight f3. King e6, and now rook f3. And again here, I had seconds left on the clock, but I mean, I'm pawn up, and my pawn's very dangerous, so I'm certainly thinking about winning this position now. King e5, you can't allow that pawn to go. g6, off we go. Bishop c4, trying to control that pawn. g7. Rook takes b2, and now on move 40, I threw it away. I have two options here. Either knight g6 check or knight g2. What would you play? I played knight g6 check with seconds on the clock. But had I played knight g2, I'm pretty sure this is just a winning position. I'm going to take on f4 with the rook, attacking the bishop. And I'm probably going to win a piece because he's going to have to sacrifice a piece to deal with my g-pawn. So it was just this one move before the time control when I just threw away my advantage. And with seconds on the clock, I missed this move, which would have crowned quite a nice game. But my opponent's defending very well as well. So I think a draw is fair. And after the check here, well, things got very simplified in the position. And we got to this ending. And even myself shouldn't lose this ending. There's no way that really either side can do anything here, and I just keep my rook on this rank. His only idea is to try to get the king to this square or maybe to play b5, but it's a rook ending with equal material and there's nothing that either of us can really do, so we agree to draw here. So an interesting game. I thought many tactical moments, many interesting aspects to that game. Draw a fair result. I think we both played well at stages. We both possibly missed things at stages, but a tough game. And you know, nice to. I mean, one thing I found positive in my own chess is I'm playing all these top players like 26, 2700s, and I'm not just trying to draw against them. I'm actually against every single player. I got chances to win against them. You know, so. I mean, I think this is the way to improve. Don't play to draw or to equalise. Play to win. You know, if you lose, you lose. But, you know, this is the way to really improve. That's what I found in my chess. Always play to win. Never take draws. And you can only get better then. Well, thank you for watching this. Please do, if you want to support this, what I do, please do go and check out the Black Friday sale. It's only on for a very limited amount of time. You can get, like I say, over 100 hours of Ginger GM tuition for 50% off. There's loads of deals going on there. If you haven't got the collection, go there and please, you know, it does help support what I do. And, you know, it just helps basically. So if you want to do that, thank you very much. And thank you for watching this video. I know analysis videos are not always people's favourites, but I want to continue doing the analysis. I did 2 whites in the Isle of Man. I'm going to look at 2 black games I have for the next tournament. And I'll be back doing some crazy blitz soon. I'm probably going to try to stream later as well if you are about. So I'll hopefully catch some of you from my stream in the afternoon. Goodbye for now. Cheers.